Good morning. Happy Mother's Day. And welcome to the Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, which we tend to refer to as BUFF. All who come in the spirit of goodwill are welcome here. Whether this is your first time here or you've been coming for years, whether you're here with us in the sanctuary or visiting online, we're really glad that you're here with us. I'm Carrie Kenline, and I'll be your celebrant this morning, assisting our minister, Reverend Sunny Joy McMillan. My pronouns are she, her. And Lynn, can you come up? Our board president, soon to retire board president, Lynn Skafdal, has an announcement.
Good morning. So I just want to remind you that the annual meeting is at the end of the month, the last Sunday of the month, and we have some really important decisions to make this year, and we need a quorum. So if you're a member, work really hard to come. If you're not a member but you're really interested, see Sunny and she'll sign you up in time to vote. It's a pretty cool thing. So at the board meeting, at the annual meeting, we don't do it. It's very businesslike, moves right along. Not a lot of time to discuss things. So we're having these listening sessions where you get to hear about stuff, and we get to hear from you. And one of them is today, downstairs in the social hall at 12 o'clock. And we're going to talk about Tom Nicholas has worked really hard on getting a lot of input from a lot of people to create a mission statement. Our mission statement was a little outdated, so we're trying to update that. And so that's one thing you can hear about. And the other one is many of you know our roof leaks. So a team of people have been working to figure out what to do with the roof, and you get to hear what they've come up with. And ask questions. So it's really important meeting time to listen and get your questions answered. So hope that you will grab a cup of tea and or coffee and hang out with us. All right, thank you.
And just one more announcement. Normally, our monthly after the service potluck would be next week, the third Sunday, but we're moving it to the fifth Sunday, the day of the congregational meeting, which will be the May 31st. And now, Melanie will play and we'll come more into a time of worship.
Thank you, Melanie. Good morning. My name is Reverend Sunny McMillan, and I am the minister here at Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, or BUF. My pronouns are she and her. Happy Mother's Day to all who identify as a mom in any way, and for those for whom motherhood or being mothered is complicated or tough. We see you too. I also just want to share something that Stephanie Rains brought to my attention that Heather Cox Richardson, one of our favorite historians around here, posted last night. Mother's Day, with the apostrophe not in the singular but in the plural, actually started in the 1870s when the sheer enormity of the death caused by the Civil War and the Franco-Prussian War convinced writer and reformer Julia Ward Howe that women must take control of politics from the men who had permitted such carnage. Mother's Day was not designed to encourage people to be nice to their mothers. It was part of women's effort to gain power and change society, which feels very in keeping with our theme for today. Our Unitarian Universalist faith lifts up 6 shared values: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, all with love at the center. Digging a little deeper, the description of the value of pluralism reads, "We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture and experience and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect." In the spirit of pluralism and celebrating theological diversity, we're going to spend some time today looking at the Shakers, and more specifically, their radical, norm-defying leader, Ann Lee, or Mother Ann Lee, as she was known by her followers. At the height of their movement in the mid-19th century, which happens to be the same time period that our Universalist root tradition had reached its height, the Shakers in the mid-19th century numbered around 5,000 to 6,000, and they held over 100,000 acres of land in common ownership. By the turn of the 20th century, however, Shaker numbers were down to 1,000. By 1930, there were only 100. Fast forward a century, and you'll find an NPR article from 2025 entitled, "The Number of Shakers in the U.S. Rises to 3." You heard that right. As of 2025, there were 3 practicing Shakers in the U.S. Interestingly, and quite prophetically, Ann Lee said during her lifetime, quote, "There will come a time when there won't be enough believers to bury their own dead. When only 5 are left, then there will be a revival." Coincidentally, it was around the time that only 5 Shakers were left that prolific author Nardi Reader Campion picked up a torch for the Shakers, diving deep into Shaker history, writings, and lore, and publishing in 1976 the book, Mother Ann Lee, Morning Star of the Shakers, a book that was reissued in 1990 and served as one of the primary sources behind the movie released just this past year, The Testament of Ann Lee. With a book, a movie, and plenty of ensuing articles and press, the revival Ann Lee predicted has, in a way, come to fruition. Had it not been for a buff congregant who forwarded to me a New York Times article about the movie, it likely would not have hit my radar screen, but I'm so glad it did. Thank you, Gerald. Previously, I knew virtually nothing of Ann Lee. After watching just the trailer for the movie, I had to know more about this radical woman. The deeper my research went, the bigger my inspiration became, and the more parallels I began seeing between the Shakers and our own UU faith tradition. Not necessarily in theology and eschatology, but in their values and leading-edge social action. While our Unitarian and Universalist forebears were blazing their own religious trails in the earliest years of this nation, so too were Ann Lee and the Shakers. They existed in and around each other in New England in the 17 and 1800s, and their paths even crossed a bit. In his journals, Unitarian minister and transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote that the Shakers, with their common property ownership, were the pioneers of modern socialism. And where other utopian living experiments of the day had failed, like Fruitlands, co-founded by Unitarians like Bronson Alcott, it was said of the Shakers' communal living that, quote, nowhere is the twofold purpose of human life, of being good and doing good, so fully provided for. But the Shakers were even more norm-defying and heretical than the Unitarians and the Universalists. We'll explore how in just a moment. And though the U.S. Constitution would ultimately provide for freedom of religion, those like Ann Lee, who came to the New World seeking freedom in worship, did not always find it initially. In her book, Mother Ann Lee, Campion highlights, for example, Mary Dyer, a devout Quaker who ultimately was hanged on Boston Common, having been charged with sedition and simply bearing witness to her faith. Campion writes that Mother Ann is, quote, a less well-known but equally staunch figure in the procession of early Americans who bravely endured persecution for the sake of their religious convictions. Ann Lee seems never to have wavered in her convictions, despite multiple arrests, beatings, and jail time, both in her home country of England and upon arriving in the New World. Though we do not count her among our Unitarian Universalist ancestors, we can count her among the ancestors who paved the way for a UU value like pluralism. Our tradition's free and responsible search for truth and meaning was not always a given, and many who came before us sacrificed a great deal, including their lives, to ensure this right. Ann Lee was one of those individuals. And in this current moment in history, when we are called to stand up for justice and equity, and when doing so can be dangerous, Ann Lee's radicality and courage can serve as a source of inspiration. As we light our chalice today on Mother's Day, we will honor Ann Lee's enduring legacy. And now I invite you to read with me the covenant printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
When I told my anthropologist wife, Dominique, about our topic this morning, she was very excited. For many years, she taught the sex and gender class through the anthropology department at Western Washington University here in Bellingham. And she always included a lesson on Ann Lee and the Shakers, a woman who, against all odds and guided by her own spiritual vision, led the way in creating a culture that prayed to a God that was both mother and father. Dominique thought it was important to share about this often discounted and persecuted group of pacifist abolitionists that saw men and women as equal, practiced celibacy while creating a culture of love, and wove the arts, dancing, singing, beautiful, simple craft work into every part of their life. Their message was simple: to love one another. Now, we're going to sing the most well-known Shaker song. It made its way into Aaron Copland's ballet Appalachian Spring. It's made its way into lots of hymnals, including ours, Simple Gifts. It's hymn number 16 in our gray hymnal. Please rise as you're able and willing. And you may know it by heart. There's only one verse. And we're going to sing it twice because it's very short. To or a story specifically for the kids, but instead I'm going to invite up our religious education teacher, Liz Upperson, who's going to be honoring the RE volunteers.
Good morning. I'm still going to need the kids to help me, so any kids who want to come up, you'll have a special job in just a minute. Okay. I'll tell you the job in a minute. Okay. Anne Reed Jarvis, or Mother Jarvis, was a young Appalachian homemaker and a lifelong activist who in the mid-1800s organized Mother's Day work clubs in West Virginia to combat unsanitary living conditions that contributed to the high infant mortality rate. She was also a Sunday school teacher. Today, the children and I want to thank our volunteers for their dedication to our congregation through the Buff Religious Explorers program, which includes youth group, OWL, and a lot of other activities we've been doing this year. Together, our volunteers have taught our children UU values while facilitating activities that build friendships and fun. There are 23 people to thank, so unless you want to be here all morning, I suggest you hold your applause till the end, no matter how tempted. When I call your name, could you please stand up so that a child can bring you a gift and then remain standing so we can clap for you at the end. The following are volunteers in our Sunday Religious Explorers program, ranging from children in pre-K up to, could be high school. You guys ready to help me out? When I say their name, they let me grab a book and then go back to them. Start, Marta? Okay. Anne Stevenson. Oh, we're going to hold our applause. I know, Mark, I want to too. Sarah Pearson. She's way back there. Sarah Jennings. You guys want to come up here? Katie Spring. Patricia Ashby. Yvonne Chen, Alex Santo, there's Alex, Annabelle McGee, Joan McKay, John Jerseka, I know he's here, Corey Horton, they're not here. They are in Maine right now with their grandparents, and I hope we'll come back soon, but they're staying there for an indefinite amount of time, but y'all know Corey. Corey grew up here in our congregation. Lark Clayton, Susan Smith, over there. The following have provided special lessons and collaborations with RE. Lisa Moss, who did wonderful sanctuary gardens with us a couple weeks ago, and Grace Nyblade. Next, our youth group leaders, Gabe Epperson, Jen Vialva Cheap, they're both in the back. Ezra Tilland, and Carl Meyer. Someone want to find Carl? I know he's here. Okay. Even though OWL hasn't started this year, our OWL team is already hard at work. Thank you to the following for being our OWL volunteer coordinators for OWL this fall, when we will be offering K1 and 3rd through 5th grade OWL. Marianne Welch, and Annie Sorich. I know, hard to hold your applause on that one. I only have one more after this, so. And finally, a huge thanks to the Beehive. As a part-time RE, I couldn't have offered such an amazing option for our older children and youth without her organization, and that is Alicia Lund in the back. As we have grown, so has the Beehive. They need more space and will be moving on over the summer. The Beehive and Children's Art fundraiser after the service is a thank you from them to Buff, and all the proceeds will go to Buff. And if I forgot you, I'm sincerely, very insanely sorry. Please come find me. I will take you out to coffee. And now it's time to sing our children off to their classes after you applause. Yay!
One of the most striking things to me about the Shakers was the way they welcomed and cared for the downtrodden and cast out members of societies, including slaves, orphans, and women who had been abused. So it seems fitting that our social and environmental justice collection this month is for DV-SAS, Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services of Whatcom County. So I'm going to invite Margie George to tell us a little about the organization.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Margie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm part of the executive leadership team at DV-SAS, and I want to thank you all for inviting me into your space today, into your service today. I imagine that many of you have heard of Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services of Whatcom County, but for those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are the local agency that provides resources and services for anyone in Whatcom County who is experiencing intimate partner violence, sexual assault, or sexual exploitation. We have a pretty wide range of services that we offer, everything from emergency safe housing and a 24-hour helpline to court support and prevention education. We have support groups. We have a parenting after violence class. We'll even go with you to the hospital when you need to have a forensic exam. But I'm here today to talk to you about why it matters to you, why it matters that DV-SAS, an agency like this, exists in our community. On average, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men will experience intimate partner violence at some point in their lives. Nearly a quarter of all adults, women and men, have experienced some form of contact sexual violence in their lifetimes. You've all been connected to it. Maybe it was your best friend in college who was assaulted at a party. Maybe you saw your mom getting hurt by your dad. Maybe you had a partner who consistently made your world smaller. Maybe you had to drive halfway across the state to help your friend or your niece or your daughter or your nephew escape a violent relationship. We all have a reason to care. We all know someone because everyone knows someone. And when you think back to that time, how much did you wish there was someone you could call? Someone who knew what you were going through and could help you figure out what to do next. Someone who knew how the systems worked and would stand by your side while you were at the hospital, when you went to the courthouse. And now you do. DV-SAS is that call. We are those people. Whether you meet us at the hospital or at a court because a cop had to come to your house, maybe you saw us at the farmer's market, you came to one of our events, or your friends slipped you our phone number because they were worried about you and they knew you needed somebody to talk to. We are that call, and if we can, we will help. We've been answering the calls since 1979, and while every single one of our staff members and volunteers would love to take that last phone call and lock the doors behind us and walk away. I don't know that 2026 is going to be our year for that. So we're going to keep responding to the hospital. We're going to keep helping people write and file protection orders. And we're going to keep making sure that anyone who wants a safe path to leave for them, for their pets, for their children, for their families, has that access, has that opportunity. So thank you. Thank you for helping our organization help the survivors in our community.
Thank you, Margie. Well, we really like supporting organizations in our community that support our values. And I want to invite the ushers to come forward. We're going to send around the offering baskets. Those on Zoom will see a screen about how to give. And unless you indicate otherwise, everything we collect today will go to DVSAS. Thank you.
What I'm about to ask you to do might be scary. It's labeled in your order of service as guided action because I wanted to be intentionally vague in order not to steer any of you away this morning. I'm about to ask you to empty your pockets Hey, Mark, why didn't those go in the offering basket, huh? I'm going to invite you to stand up. I'm going to invite my friends Wendy Howard and Melanie Reek to sing with me. And while we're singing, this Shaker song called Love is Little, I invite you to do two things. The first is you probably came with someone today with whom it's very comfortable to say, I love you. And there's probably someone on the other side of you for whom that's a little bit less comfortable.
I love you all.
We are a religion that's got 6 values with love at the center. And today, in an exercise of pluralism, we're communing with the way Shakers communicate that love. I wanted you to empty your pockets so that you could embrace this new sensation without being burdened by the world outside of this church. I want to invite you into this deliberate act of love for maybe someone you don't know. And if I love you is a dishonest thing to say to them because we're just not there yet, feel free to say, I want to love you. We're going to sing this song. Feel free to sing it with us after you've done that for the people around you. And if you feel moved and you've just been standing too long and you want to get back to the gravity of your stuff, you can sit down whenever you like.
Love is little, love is low. Love will make my spirit grow. Love is little, love is low. Love will make my spirit grow. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that...
Unison again.
Love is little, love is low. Love will make my spirit grow. Love is little, love is low. Love will make my spirit grow. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. Love is little. Love will make my spirit grow. Love is little. Love is low. Love will make my spirit grow. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. Love is little. Love will make my spirit grow. Love is little, love is low. Love will make my spirit grow. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that one more. Love is little. Love will make my spirit grow. Love is little. Love is low. Love will make my spirit grow. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do the thing that's right. Grow in peace, grow in light. Love will do
Thank you, Ben and Melanie and Wendy. Our story today opens in Manchester, England in the early 1700s. In a time of rising industrialization, Manchester was sooty and black, a sprawling city dominated by textile mills. The poet William Blake would later bring attention to Manchester, referring to its factories as dark, satanic mills. Workers with little to no rights or protections lived in squalor around these mills, with whole families sharing a single cramped room and children as young as 6 and 7 years old working from 5 a.m. until well after dark. Beyond the deplorable housing and working conditions, life was anything but kind and the legal system anything but just. 253 offenses were punishable by death, including for crimes as inconsequential as cutting down a tree or stealing a few shillings worth of property. A child as young as 10 years old could be put to death. The religion of the day came from the Church of England, which apparently took no issue with the legal system that punished children by death. Women held no positions of leadership or spiritual authority in that church, and they didn't fare much better in the home. According to the great English jurist of the day, William Blackstone, the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during marriage, or at least incorporated into that of her husband. In other words, married women had no legal identity of their own, and their property, earnings, and belongings were controlled by their husband. It was into this grim world that Anne Lee was born in 1736. The second of 8 children, she went to work in the mills when she was just 8 years old. School was not an option for children born into poverty or mill work, and so Anne never learned to read or write. And yet, Anne Lee would go on to lead a religious movement whose impact on the world was out of all proportion to their numbers, according to Nardi Reader Campion, author of Mother Anne Lee, Morning Star of the Shakers. Most familiar with the Shaker style of furniture know it as that wonderful craftsmanship. And these days, their furniture and artifacts with that long-lasting craftsmanship capture astronomical sums at auction. And many are familiar with their music and dance, popularized through folks like Aaron Copland and Martha Graham. We have sung today in the service 2 of their most famous hymns. Perhaps less well known is the extent of Shaker ingenuity and their inventions. Campion reports that the Believers were the first to dry seeds and sell them in packets, the first to fashion cut nails and metallic pins, the first to make a 4-wheel dump wagon, the first to make herb medicines for the ailing and manuals for the gardener, among many other things. And unlike the Puritans, who made no time for pleasure, the Shakers relished life and joy in their ecstatic worship, coming up with over 40 time-saving inventions so they did not overwork. These inventions included the flat broom, the clothespin, a type of washing machine, a circular saw, turbine water wheel, apple parer, and even a revolving oven to bake 60 pies at once. The furniture, the music, the ingenuity, and the inventions all make for an impressive and enduring legacy for their movement. Most impressive to me, however, is how it all came about due to the audacious religious convictions of the young woman, Anne Lee, who, despite her poverty and illiteracy, despite a society and a religious order that said she was inferior and unfit for spiritual leadership, stubbornly refused to give up on her vision of a better, more loving world, a world where she believed God is love, where good work was worship, and where, according to their Shaker manifesto, they would usher in a time when, quote, all tyrannical and oppressive governments shall be overthrown and destroyed, and mankind enjoy just and equal rights in all matters, civil and religious. It is with wonder and awe that I consider how a woman born in Manchester during that dark period, unresourced and uneducated, could have that kind of vision. Those who followed her and chronicled her life would tell you it was because of her deep and abiding spirituality. From a young age, Anne displayed an intense religious devotion. But she found little nourishment in the Church of England, however, with its emphasis on the intellectual, the sacraments, and its own power, not the plight of the common people who faced brutal and unjust treatment on a daily basis. She was instead initially inspired by a couple of Methodist ministers who evangelized under the trees of Manchester, stirring up great emotion in the gathered crowds. Later, at age 22, she joined the Wardley Society, led by Jane and James Wardley, two former Quakers who had split off to form their own group. Like the Quakers, the Wardleys group valued inward spiritual experience over external creed and dogma, and they allowed women to hold positions of leadership. In fact, Mother Jane Wardley led many of their services at a time when a female preacher was simply unheard of. Unlike the Quakers, however, the Wardleys group developed an expressive and ecstatic style of worship where internal emotion became external sound and movement. As Campion describes it, they would start by walking the floor, chanting and singing. Soon they would be shouting, shaking, and dancing. And because of this, they were called shaking Quakers, a name first used in ridicule but later widely accepted. Perhaps most audacious about the shaking Quakers, however, was their belief that God was both male and female. As they saw it, Jesus Christ first appeared as a man to represent the male principle, and they eagerly awaited the second coming, which they believed would be in the form of a woman to represent the female aspect of God. In time, Ann Lee's followers would come to see her as this female embodiment of the second coming, although it should be noted that the Shakers never deified Jesus or Mother Ann. They were simply revered as the first elders in this millennial church who were examples to be emulated. To support their argument for the spiritual leadership of a woman, the Shakers quoted from the biblical book of Jeremiah, proclaiming, "For the Lord hath created a new thing in the earth, a woman shall compass a man." For many progressive Christians even today, the idea of a female Christ figure is pretty revolutionary. In 18th century England, it was outright blasphemy. And so, as Ann Lee began to assume a leadership role amongst the shaking Quakers, and as she began to speak out against the Church of England, even interrupting their services to call out their indifference to the suffering of the people, arrests, jail time, fines, persecution, and physical violence soon followed the group. It was during one of these imprisonments that Ann Lee had a vision that would drive one of her most firmly held and controversial convictions. Anne came to believe that the root of all evil in the world derived from sexual desire, and celibacy was the answer. There are a variety of theories as to why Anne came to take such a radical stance around sex and marriage, not the least of which is that she gave birth to 4 children, all of whom apparently died in infancy. For Anne, celibacy was potentially one way of preventing further loss and trauma of that kind. Whatever the reason for her convictions, her advocacy of celibacy and criticism of the institution of marriage made her an object of further derision, even hostility. And so, when those same inspiring Methodist ministers returned to Manchester after a trip to America and shared of a rebirth of the Spirit happening there, Mother Ann Lee gathered 8 followers, and they headed for the New World. As Campion describes it, Anne intuited that the colonies would one day gain their independence, and then freedom of conscience would be secured for all people to worship without hindrance. An 1823 account of the Shakers reports that religious freedom was dearer to Anne than life. After a perilous voyage on a ship whose tickets were cheap, mainly because the boat had been condemned prior to sailing, they landed in New York in 1774 in search of religious freedom. Just ahead of the Revolutionary War, the Shakers would leave the city for a large wilderness property in Niskayuna, several miles northwest of Albany, New York, where they would cultivate the land, construct buildings, and create an enduring community of their own. Though Anne had suffered the loss of all 4 of her children, though her husband left her upon arrival in the New World, though their first years in New York were full of hunger, hardship, and lack of converts, and though she endured further persecution, imprisonment, and violence in America for her radical religious movement, Anne remained steadfast in her belief that good things were to come. Her resilience paid off. During her life, she'd go on to found 6 additional Shaker societies in New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Though she died in 1784 at the age of only 48, her legacy lived on as more Shaker societies were founded, as their distinctive craftsmanship and music gained popularity, and as recognition and appreciation for their progressive social ideals continues to grow even today. As I was diving deep into my research of Anne Lee, I could not help but compare and contrast her to the revolutionary women in our own UU tradition, one of whom, Abigail Adams, you will find in the insert in your order of service. And fun fact, our very own Beth Brownfield, who's seated right back there, created a whole series of these with over 100 UU biographical cards featuring well-known and not so well-known people who have helped define our tradition. Born in 1744, Abigail Adams was a contemporary of Anne Lee who attended a congregation Unitarian in its theology. Abigail would go on to marry John Adams, the second president, and their son, John Quincy Adams, who would become the 6th president of the United States. She is perhaps most well known for advising her husband to, quote, remember the ladies and treat them equitably as the men were creating the country's new system of laws. By all accounts, Abigail Adams was capable and intelligent, and like Anne Lee, she sought a change to the established order. But as author and Shaker Museum curator June Sprigg wrote, in the end, we remember Abigail Adams not for who she was herself, but because she was someone's wife and someone's mother. Her importance, after all, was as an appendage. Without John Adams or John Quincy Adams, what would we really know of her? By contrast, we remember Anne Lee for herself and for the Shaker world she helped bring into being. And then there's Margaret Fuller, a famous UU ancestor who was the only female member of the Transcendentalist Club in the mid-1800s. Born in Massachusetts in 1810, Margaret Fuller was provided a wide-ranging education, much unlike Anne Lee, in childhood that would lead her to becoming editor of the famous Dial magazine and author of the notorious feminist book, Woman in the 19th Century, which Horace Greeley, founder of the New York Tribune, later said was the loftiest and most commanding assertion yet made of the right of woman to be regarded and treated as an independent, intelligent, rational being. Like Abigail Adams, Margaret Fuller also sought to change the existing order, but she did so through the use of her intellect and the pen. Abigail Adams and Margaret Fuller are both amazing examples of trailblazing women, and I am proud to share a faith tradition with them. But if we're judging based on radicality, I think Anne Lee has got them beat. In divinity school, one of my favorite courses was radical pedagogy, where each week we considered a different individual or organization asking, is it radical? We defined a radical from the Latin word radix, meaning root, as someone who doesn't settle for cosmetic solutions, but instead goes to the root of personal and social problems. And to be truly radical, our professor explained, largely depended on context and timing. Take, for example, women's right to vote. In the US in 1825, radical. In 2025, not so radical. Anne Lee and the Shakerism she inspired was radical on all fronts, which is why I think their movement, though different in theology, is timely in its source of inspiration in this current moment when we UUs are called to stand up for our values and convictions, despite conflict and potential danger, in speaking out and resisting. When it is time to finally get to the root of all the social problems that have been with us since the founding of this nation. As we've already explored, the Shakers' male-female God and female leader was radical. Campion even writes it's not too far-fetched to say that Anne Lee was the founder of women's liberation in this country. Radical. Her positive and collaborative relationship with the surrounding indigenous Americans who called Mother Anne the good woman, radical. The Shakers' early abolitionism and disgust at slavery, which stemmed from their belief in the 1700s about the inherent worth and dignity of all humans, radical. Anne Lee's encouragement towards stewardship of the earth and cultivation done in a spirit of love because, quote, the earth yields most to those who love it, radical. When war was the way of things, the Shakers maintained their pacifism, speaking out in conscientious objection to all wars. Radical. When there were no social institutions to take care of orphaned, abandoned, or illegitimate children, the Shakers lovingly took them in. Radical. And during a time when doors were closed to people of color and those of non-Christian religions, the Shaker Society welcomed them all, with Black, Indigenous, people of color, immigrants, and Jews among its members. Radical. Campion sums it all up by saying, "Some feared this strange woman threatened the very fabric of society. Everything she stood for was dangerous. The rejection of clergy, creeds, liturgies, and sacraments, the refusal to take oaths or bear arms, the dedication to communal living and common ownership of property, the insistence on the fact that preaching, teaching, and prophecy were as appropriate for women as for men. Scandalous suggestions all. Scandalous and radical. And apparently, when outsiders protested that such ideas amounted to revolution, Mother Ann replied calmly, "We are the people who turn the world upside down." On this Mother's Day, let us be inspired by Mother Ann Lee's radical example, inspired by the strength of and commitment to her convictions, and inspired, like the Shakers, to be the people who turn the world upside down. And now, the Phoenix Pool.
Often get asked my inspiration for picking songs, and this one may seem a little bit less obvious than normal. This song I picked because I think it's incredibly fun. I think it dances super well. I think it asks us to think about what's actually important as this man who meets a troll, or this person who meets a troll, decides to pay with money for the troll toll. And the troll says, "Money's no good here. You will sing and dance." See how the story goes.
He said to my dread, "Pay my toll, or
And now, as we leave this sacred space and go back out into the world, may we, like Mother Ann Lee, connect deeply with our own values and convictions. May we live them out with courage, and may we be the people who turn the world upside down for good. As Carrie extinguishes our chalice, I affirm that we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now you're invited to join us as we circle round for freedom, singing our final hymn. The words are printed in your order of service.